Hello everyone and welcome back to this course on implementing high availability solutions with Windows Server 2019. In this section 5 of the course, we are going to discuss about implementing storage spaces direct. In this first video, we are going to talk about determining scenarios for implementing S2D. If you remember from the section of managing and implementing failover clustering, we have discussed about several options of storage that we can connect our cluster to. It was option 1 where we connected our cluster to a fiber channel SAN or an iSCSI shared cluster storage. Option 2 where we connected our cluster to an enclosure composed of just a bunch of disks. And option 3 where we separated our compute layer from our storage servers, which in turn they were connected to either JBOD enclosure or a fiber channel SAN or iSCSI SAN. Now, it's only when we get into the last of these two models, let's say, where we start focusing on this new concept of distributed local shared storage. It's here where you can see that the single disk has been separated out into a local disk that ends up being replicated between the different cluster nodes. And in the hyper-converged approach, here we actually have our Hyper-V hosts on the same machines as our storage hosts. When you're only really worried about serving up Hyper-V virtual machines, and you really just have enough hardware to support both the running of those virtual machines and the hosting of their data, well, creating this more or less simple hyper-converged cluster can be a really great idea. The storage spaces direct technology is what ensures that the data underneath all of these machines gets correctly replicated and separated out across the different cluster nodes to support one or two or maybe even more simultaneous failures. We'll talk about how you can configure your cluster here a little bit later on to protect yourself from any number of failures, let's say, that you should so choose, right? The hyper-converged infrastructure here is really the first of the two different kinds of clusters we'll be creating here in this section. We'll start first here with the hyper-converged model because, well, it's the simpler of the two. And just as with the option 3 before, option 5, the last model, takes what we've been already basically learned in the separating out, in the scaling out of our compute later from our storage layer and replicates it here underneath the same design of storage spaces direct. Here you can see that our Hyper-V hosts have been separated out into their own compute layer above our storage layer, and that storage itself is served up through an SOFS cluster that we will install. We can actually, and this is something you probably wouldn't do in a production environment, but we'll be doing it here. You can actually have, in a way, a disaggregated cluster that attaches to a hyperconverged cluster. All that all that this effectively means is that we'll be installing the Hyper-V host role on our storage servers, as well as on our cluster servers, just so that we can get a feel for exactly how both of these different configurations work. In the real world, in your actual production environment, you'd probably choose one of these two approaches rather than choosing them both at the same time, right? And you tend to aim towards the latter, to be honest, because when you find yourself perhaps needing to, again, scale this environment as you move or look into the future, right? So, I will see you guys in the next video where we'll be discussing about understanding the S2D resiliency configurations. I hope this has been informative for you and thank you for watching.